Hi, it's Julie at Love's Beginning, and I have a talk today called Please Help Me See. I just wanted to note I received this message originally on August 16th, or like the bare bones of it, because I was talking with a friend yesterday about this exactly, forgetting that I had received this. So I just wanted to note to her, hey, this is actually from August 16th, but it links directly to what we were talking about yesterday. Okay, so here we go. The first statement is, whenever you are upset, you are not seeing properly. You can always ask this, please help me see. And it's always that simple, but what the ego will never send us a thought saying, I am not seeing this correctly. Unless the correction it seeks is another ego thought. That's probably the only exception. We're not the ego. The ego is a false construct of separate identity. And the ego will never send us the thought that the reason we're upset is because we're seeing something that isn't here, and that we're not seeing properly, that we're not seeing at all. But spirit will remind us your perception is distorted. And what is our greatest power? To ask for the correction, for the actual solution, not to try to dash first after a solution in the world or from the world, or say someone in the world should be doing a certain thing, or the world for us should take a certain form, trying to arrange the world, just to simply ask for correction. And I know we have to do it over and over again, and the meaning of that deepens as we do it, but that is pretty much the most real thing we can do in any situation in which we feel disturbed. We ask what is truly here, Spirit, please help me see. And that is something simple and easy to remember. Probably the biggest challenge is that we have to stop. We have to stop our narrative. We have to interrupt ego's story. So if there's anything I can commit to, it's I can interrupt ego. Now when somebody else is talking, I don't have to interrupt. I'm projecting anything that seems to be disturbing me there too. I can wait, but I can also ask, please help me see. Help me see this as it truly is. However I'm judging it, I can be freed from that right now. Whether I'm judging it positively or negatively, we see at the end of the day both become painful if they're relative to each other. Then they make each other real, the positive and the negative. Instead of the actual goodness without opposites, the opposite that is always here for all of us. So when I ask, please help me see, I am falling back into that goodness without opposite that is always here. I'm falling back into that, and I'm acknowledging this is the most real help that's available to me right now. Okay, you can only be upset about what isn't actually here. So that reminds me of, from A Course in Miracles, nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. So whenever I'm upset today, or tired, or bored, or irritated, or derisive, or all the varieties, anything stressful, anything with any tension, critical, that's upset. The only thing that can cause that is what isn't actually here. So if I've been fooling myself, I might want to stop, because it keeps causing my belief in what isn't actually here, keeps causing states of mind that are deeply uncomfortable. And as long as I believe my deeply uncomfortable state of mind has been caused by something real, by something actual, and in order for my state of mind to be relieved, I have to insist upon a change in that real and actual thing. Well, when I turn it over to, I can only be upset about what isn't actually here, then I can get down into that projecting and extending thing. I can extend love in any moment. So can everyone. That's our most natural function. But if I'm projecting fear instead, and that's what I'm doing when I'm in a deeply uncomfortable state of mind, then I'm not in touch with what is actually here for me and everyone right now. And that's love. Love is act no matter what seems to be happening, no matter what anything looks like. Love is actually here for everyone and for me right now. So when I feel upset, if I remember, I can only be upset about what isn't actually here. But what can I do? Instead of reaching out to judge any of the things my mind is flooding toward me, my wrong mind. I invented the wrong mind. It's called ego, and it floods me with thoughts. Instead of hopping on the bandwagon and judging that, I can hop off. I can hop off and say, please help me see. With no particular expectations, just the awareness there's obviously a problem because of how I feel, and there is also a solution. It's having my perception corrected. But there's no expectation of how that's going to look. I can have an expectation of how that's going to feel because when I accept correction, I feel better. Okay, let's see. Next up, whether you seem to be physically amongst people or thinking of people, that's the same thing, doesn't matter. Remember that your focus can be on the reality rather than on the surface. So when we're not with people, we're often thinking about people and things. And our minds just run. And we believe thought after thought after thought after thought from ego, pretending that all of it's real. And pretending that all the separate things have actual separate qualities and that some of those could benefit us. So we better cozy up to the benefit we can extract from things and people and situations. And then some of them have a lack of benefit, so we better avoid things and people and situations. And yeah, this is still in my mind. So I'm working on meeting that with sanity. Whether you seem to be, just repeating it for myself, physically amongst people or thinking of people, remember that your focus can be on the reality rather than the surface. So the reality is goodness without opposite. It's what's under everything or beneath, behind, ready to shine through everything. Ego has me focusing on a surface that I made and judging, and trying to get things from it, and trying to avoid things, thinking it can reach out and get me and hurt me. So many opportunities. And when we're not with people, we're thinking of people and things and places, and we can benefit from interrupting ego's narrative about all of these things. He's saying 1,000 times a day, just stopping and saying, well, here I go again. Please help me see. There's something else to see here. My mind does not have to run like this. Spirit can supply all of my thoughts. So we just keep turning back toward what is real, consistently. And that helps us be aware consistently that there is no danger to us, that we're loved, that we're supported, that we're guided, that we're safe, that everybody's safe. That helps us remember that consistently. Okay, so next, look at the urge to accuse and condemn. Just in mind, maybe you don't speak these things and maybe you do. It doesn't really matter. The only thing that matters is that you notice how you feel. I'm saying this with the awareness that the lesson's mine. I'm saying you, but it's when my friends tell me you, they mean me. It's for my lesson. So look at the urge to accuse and condemn. I'll run into this today. In its mildest form, it doesn't matter if it seems exaggerated and really hateful, or if it seems very mild and minor. It doesn't matter. I need to interrupt ego's narrative both times. So the urge to accuse and condemn, this is always pointed toward you, even if it seems to be directed to an outer form. So while we're having this time-space experience, there's a deep guilt that's powering it. And the guilt is that I've separated out from my Creator, and I've done actual wrong, and I've caused actual harm, and I'm in a shitload of trouble, and I better not go home, because if I go home, I'll be punished. So I have to use every bit of power I have to stay away from home. That's what I'm up to. That's what I'm doing. It's not what you're doing. You can decide what you're doing. It's what I'm doing. And I'm here to accept the healing. I'm here to accept the healing in mind, the mind clearing today. So if I look at the urge to accuse or condemn anything, I stub my toe in stupid table, right? It's always pointed toward me. All accusation and condemnation is pointed toward me. And I can see the tendency during my day to think, well, if the accusation and condemnation is pointed outward toward real things, and I believe I have to do real things about these real things that are wrong in the world, I'm totally distracted from the reality that I'm condemning myself, because everything is myself. Everyone is myself. Behind it, that same light is shining. And I might go through my day just condemning and accusing over and over again in very subtle ways. Look for the accusation and condemnation. Look for the ugly stuff, because if we try to cover it over with the positive frosting, I'll be supportive, I'll compliment people, I'll say nice things, then we're ignoring how we actually judge them constantly, relentlessly, and therefore we constantly, relentlessly judge ourselves and seeming conditions around us throughout the day. But our power is interrupting the narrative very consistently and asking, please help me see. And we're not asking the figments of our imagination that we're experiencing. We're asking what's actually here. I know I've been churning out a nightmare and experiencing it, even though it has both pleasant and unpleasant forms. I know I've been churning out a nightmare, and you, love, God, what's real, reality, you're here, and you can help me with the only problem I have, which is not an aspect of the nightmare I've been churning out. It's the fact that I'm churning out a nightmare with both pleasant and unpleasant aspects, and I make myself a character in the nightmare, and I make myself subject to the aspects of the nightmare, and then I look out and I find all these other separate aspects in the nightmare, and I also make them subject to separate aspects of the nightmare. That's my problem. It's not anything the ego would tell me about the world today, any particular situation being a problem, or any particular person being a problem. When I say that, and it's not that I'm not going to address things during my day. If I drop an object, I'm going to pick it up. If I spill the drink, I'm going to clean it up, right? And I'm still believing in aspects of a world, and that's okay, because Spirit uses our belief in separate aspects of a world to guide us back home. But the important part is that we acknowledge and accept Spirit's guidance as we're still dreaming and still believing in separate aspects. Then Spirit can use our perception of those seemingly separate aspects to guide us all in harmony back toward the peace we actually are. We're looking at all these surfaces and labeling and judging them and calling them problem, when behind them is the peace we actually are, shining forever. And that is what we have worked to ignore. So when I'm upset about something, It's a signal. I've worked very hard to ignore the peace that's shining eternally behind this. And I don't have to do that. I don't have to do that anymore. That's optional. So that's why I interrupt ego's narrative often. And I notice I'm tense. I notice I don't feel good. And then I can say, please help me see. Because I'm the one churning out the nightmare. The nightmare's not coming from anywhere else. It's coming from my mind. It's projected out in fear. When I'm accusing or condemning anything, I'm condemning myself and accusing myself, anyone, because it's all me. Okay. And then the last one, what seems to be outer, is a symbol of what you believe to be inner. And when I look at what I think is outer, and I remember that peace is shining behind it forever, there's no problem with that. Because if I go inward, underneath the layer of fear that I think is useful that I'm holding on to, I find peace. So the same is true of the outer. Whatever nightmare symbol I think I'm seeing, there's peace shining behind it. And I can always stop ego's narrative and remind myself of that. It seems to be difficult, but it gets easier as I go along. I was in the van with my kids, and the way they were acting with each other and with a friend who was in the van, I was judging. And I would have intervened before from fear, from nervousness, from anxiety. In the past, I would have said something trying to direct their behavior. But in this case, I didn't. I just interrupted the narrative in my mind about what was going wrong, and everything sorted itself out. That doesn't mean I never take action, but I can see now when I'm tempted to take action from fear and anxiety, and I'm able to wait longer and just take that time instead of acting quickly from fear and anxiety. Take that time to ask, please help me see. And then, if action and speech are needed, those can be used. But more and more, I'm able to wait. Even if the ego calls that irresponsible, the ego's about jumping in and action and believing all the separate aspects are real. It helps to focus on please help me see, because it helps me employ that wait time to come into sanity and to be able to offer some. If I'm going to offer anything, and we always are offering through thought, even if we're not speaking or acting, to offer what's truly helpful in any situation. So I'm working on that. I'm grateful that I can interrupt ego's narrative. I enjoy interrupting. I'm grateful that I can focus on please help me see, and wishing you happy healing.